for that introduction. Thank you so much, James, for that introduction. We're so excited to be here, and we thank you for this opportunity. If you're a community college and you're thinking about working with a federal agency, you're probably not thinking about the Department of Energy. That may not immediately come to mind. Perhaps you're considering the Department of Defense, the National Science Foundation, or even the Department of Education. But the reason why we're here is that we want you to consider DOE as an option. There's so much prestige that community colleges in California bring, and you add so much value to what we're trying to do. And so we would like for you to take advantage of our resources and try to leverage them, to take advantage of them so you can improve the experiences of your students, as well as improve the learning of your students. Our goals for today are to have a conversation around the Office of Technology Transitions Toolkit and discuss the opportunities that are within the toolkit. And hopefully, upon hearing those opportunities, you'll become more interested in wanting to work with us and collaborate with us. As we go forward, we're going to actually delve into the toolkit, but before we do so, I just want to provide a brief overview of OTT and our mission. We're responsible for bringing lab-based technologies to market. And part of our mission, our core mission, is also to do outreach activity to industry and other organizations, and that includes community colleges. The diagram on the right-hand side illustrates this. It's interesting, community colleges play a pretty unique role in that they can be a consumer of DOE tech, or alternatively can be working side by side with DOE Laboratories, engaging in technical services, research and development, helping to actually develop the technologies. So on this diagram, community colleges can fall in multiple places across the spectrum. This is an overview of the DOE National Laboratory Complex. We have 17 national laboratories and production facilities. They are varied in that some fall in a category of engaging in fundamental science, others are engaged in applied sciences, and still others are doing national security work. Of our national laboratory lab system, the complex has 4 laboratories in California that actually are operating. We want you to take advantage of this vast network. If you're interested in learning more, there's a link at the bottom of the page, the website for Lab Partnering Service. And at this website, you can learn more about collaborating and getting matched with national laboratories based on particular subject areas and interest. So we want you to work with us. You have so much to offer, and we in turn can support you. We have resources in the form of funding opportunity announcements and grants and competition prizes. You have the ability to do collaborative research and development and joint research projects. And also coming out of the toolkit, we have effectively available various opportunities for internships and fellowships. There's always going to be a need to do things faster, better, smarter. And community colleges are on the forefront of working to address some of this nation's greatest challenges. And this is an actual diagram from a graphic from the New York Times. And you'll notice that California is shaded almost entirely in orange. And that indicates that a high proportion of the population is engaged in occupations that are expected to grow over the next few years. And with that growth, that means there's going to be a need for new workers. So we want to work with you to develop that next gen workforce, to address that talent pipeline in STEM, to keep that going, and workforce development, and importantly, to address this upcoming skills gap that our nation's facing. There are certain challenges that our country faces that industry, government, and higher education alone cannot address. It's only by coming together that we can take advantage of the talents that we have to overcome some of the most daunting challenges, be it national security, cybersecurity, environment, for example. In this particular case, I would like to shine a spotlight on a success story that we had. relating to the COVID-19 pandemic. And a national laboratory, specifically Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, actually partnered and created a consortium that cut across higher education, government, and industry. And what ended up happening is they drew upon the collective talent of everyone involved in that diversity. And they using Lawrence Livermore, using its advanced manufacturing and advanced technology, was able to 3D print using additive manufacturing the testing swabs that were needed due to the shortage early on in the pandemic of the testing swabs that were in the testing kits. So by coming together, we were able to address a serious need, and that's what we're trying to do across the spectrum, relating to a lot of the very complex and challenging things that our country is facing, relating to all the myriad of national security, environmental, and other challenges that we face. If you have the ability to take a screenshot, it would be great, or take a photo. There's a link at the bottom left-hand corner of this particular slide that will take you to the OTT University Toolkit. The official name is the University Resource Packet. And while a lot of the offerings are exclusive to universities, by no means is it only universities that can leverage and take advantage of the toolkit programs. There's a litany of programs available that community colleges can take advantage of, and we would encourage you to do so. The toolkit attempts to take very broad-based offerings in STEM outreach and also workforce development and consolidate them into a single location. If you are a stakeholder prior to the toolkit, if you're interested in learning more, you have to go to each individual lab's website, perhaps each individual program office's website. So our attempt with the toolkit is to try to put as much as possible in one place to facilitate access to this very helpful information.
Eric, again, this is James. We'll, just so all the participants know, we will include the toolkit itself, a PDF of the document, along with the recording of this on the ECU sector website. For folks who may not be able to take a screenshot or review that, it'll be located at our website as well. And I'll put our website's link in the chat box for anybody who does not have it. So thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, James. I really appreciate that. There's so many great opportunities relating to internships and fellowships that we want the audience to take advantage of. And by all means, please disseminate it, share it with your colleagues, your students, and hopefully if you have feedback, you'll share it with us so we can go back and make adjustments and improve the document going forward. Noel's going to speak to some of the specific programs that are available. However, I just wanted to give a brief snapshot to the types of things that and programs that you could find in the toolkit. They cut across, faculty level and also all levels, K through 12, community colleges and universities, and at all levels. So we just want to make that, again, it's got university in the name, but there are a myriad of programs that we want you to look at and avail yourselves of. To conclude, let's put our heads together and try to tackle some of these unique challenges. Let's work to address some of these skills gaps and the challenges that we're facing. Community colleges in California have very potent capabilities and are the forefront of addressing some of these challenges, like the vanguard of truly tackling some of our really daunting and dire issues. So let us help. We want to support you, and we have resources to do so. We have STEM outreach and STEM programs in the form of fellowships and internships for your students. We have funding opportunities available on a limited basis for prize competitions, some funding opportunity announcements, some grants. And also, of course, I want to mention that we have the ability to do joint efforts and take on technical services, collaborative research and development, joint research and various contractual type joint projects that we can engage in. To learn more, the Lab Partnering Service, again, is a great resource. And once again, we have the link. And James mentioned that he'll provide the toolkit, but the link is also here as well. And with that, I'll hand things back over to James. Thank you so much.
I'm glad. Thank you again, Eric. And I think we'll get a little more granular with the next two presenters on examples of programs and those. And when we're talking about internships, fellowships, what that means and its application to the folks on this call. And I'm glad you addressed the university toolkit. Somebody, so I suspect some folks had made it to the toolkit and wondered with the university moniker on the top, its application to community colleges. So it's good to see there is application across K-12, community college, and four-year institutions. So without further ado, I believe Noel is going next. So I will hand it off to you, and all yours. You're on mute, Noel.
Forgive me. All these virtual protocols, you keep forgetting that you're on mute and you start talking, so forgive me. My name is Noel Blackburn. I'm the manager of university relations and DOE internship programs at Brookhaven National Lab. And what I'd like to focus on some of the mechanisms that you can use to develop collaborations at BNL, and specifically through internship type programs. Next slide. But before we move on, I wanted to focus on patriots and patriotism, because a lot of times we forget that patriotism is about love and concern and support of country. And the entire focus is only on the defense part. Next. And what you'd realize is community college professors are the ones who are going to educate the next generation of technicians and engineers. And that in itself is patriotism. Next. And you all will understand why it is I started off this way, because I want you all to recognize the value and how important you are as we move forward. So in STEM research, next, you must develop good questions. You must have good questions, and that starts in the classroom, next. And these questions would then lead to good research, and good research, next, leads to innovation. And the reason why I say it leads to innovation is because innovation then leads to, next, quality of life. And a perfect example is we all have the smartphone, right? And the power of what we hold in our hands 60 years ago was the size of a building, probably a 3 or 4 story building. And here it is today. We could use our smartphones, plug in an address, and it will direct you exactly to that address. That's quality of life. Next. And importantly, technicians and engineers impact those areas, the research and the innovation part of what I call is this research model that I believe is so important as we move on. Next. So my colleague, Eric, went through quickly about the DOE complex. Next. And I want you all to understand that the Department of Energy owns 17 national labs, of which the Office of Science owns 10 national labs. And of those 10 national labs, they are multidisciplinary labs. And I just wanted to give you all an overview of 5 of these multidisciplinary labs. Next, Eric. And so here is an aerial of Argonne National Lab, which is one of the multidisciplinary labs owned by the Office of Science. Next. Next. And then we have Oak Ridge National Lab, Lawrence Berkeley. We could go through quickly. Next. We have Pacific Northwest National Labs. And finally, we have Brookhaven National Lab. And Brookhaven National Labs and all of the national labs, they have major facilities, major and unique facilities that universities can't replicate. Hence, you have a national lab. And at BNL, we have 4 major user facilities. Next. The first one is the relativistic heavy ion collider. And that's that big circle you see there. The second is the Center for Functional Nanomaterials. The third will be the National Synchrotron Light Source. And this basically is where you have electrons accelerating in a circle in a magnetic field, and it gives this synchrotron light that you can use as an X-ray machine. These are major facilities, and all of these facilities require engineers. Sometimes we think of the Department of Energy and we may just focus, oh, it's energy, or it's just physics, or Lawrence Livermore, they just do that nuclear stuff, and BNL is only that physics. But all of the facilities that we have at national labs require engineering and technicians to support their mission. Next. I also wanted to just let you all know that a number of Nobel Prizes have been won at BNL and all of the sister labs. And so we are very familiar with winners and Nobel Prize winners and high awards. Next. I also wanted to just give you all a brief overview of the core capabilities. So for example, yes, the physics part, but then when you go down, you'll see the chemical and molecular science, you'd see the applied materials science, you'd see climate change, biological, accelerator science, large facilities, and systems and engineering and integration. So it's really multidisciplinary as we move forward in the quest for scientific truth. It has to be a multidisciplinary approach, and we have many, many different facets that come into play. Next. One of the next big discovery and machines that we are going to be building is the relativistic heavy ion collider, which was the first gen of colliders and led to the big collider that we have in CERN. We are going to be repurposing the relativistic heavy ion collider, or RIC, into an electron ion collider, which is called the EIC. Now, this is going to be answering a number of questions, one of which has been around for 100 years. Next slide. But also what this is going to lead to cures and solutions for cancer, computational analysis and computational capabilities that will be beyond even thinking, beyond, I wouldn't say beyond, but quantum-like. It will also focus on national security with regards to detectors development and advanced in energy solutions. This electron ion collider is going to, as a matter of fact, today was somewhat of the groundbreaking for it. And the construction aspect of it is going to be for the next 10 years, but then you'll have the science piece and the experimental piece for another 30, 40 years. And this is just one example of all of the 17 national labs, of the big user facilities and experiments that you can expect from a national lab. Next. I just wanted to quickly, again, go through one of the things that national labs like to do is partnerships. And at BNL, we tend to focus on the energy and R&D approach. And you'd see all of our partners that we have in our collaborations on the energy and the different user facilities that we have. As a matter of fact, we have a test bed for solar cells. And on our campus, which is about 5,300 acres of land, we have 200 acres of solar cells that's already producing electricity into the grid. Next. So here it is. The presentation is really to focus on the mechanism. And I just wanted you all to get an appreciation of the scope and breadth of all of, forgive me, folks, the scope and breadth of the type of research that is being done at BNL. But out of my office, the Office of Educational Programs, and there you see the link to it, we do a number of activities to get students and faculty involved. Next. So what we do, we have internship programs that we design and implement. We love to work with community colleges and four-year institutions to develop collaborations. We assist our researchers in the broader impacts for grants, and we can work with professors, especially if they're going after grants, NSF grants with regards to the broader impacts. We promote BNL science and DOE science in the classroom. We develop pools of users for our facilities at BNL. We are a workforce leader in the Office of Science, Workforce Development for Teachers and Scientists programs, and expanding the reach of BNL scientific community through workshop meetings and other conferences. As you see, our office, we have programs from K-12 all the way to 20 postdoc programs. Next. So, what are some of the programs we have that is typical, not atypical, but typical to any other DOE lab throughout the country? So we have summer internship programs, and today I'll be focusing on the top 3 programs across there, which is the Science Undergraduate Laboratory Internship Program, the Community College Internship Program, and the Visiting Faculty Program. But we also have other programs that you could get involved, and you could go onto the website and you can get more details on them. And one of the ways we partner with colleges and universities, so for example, we have partnered with Stony Brook University and Suffolk Community College in an A-GAP program where we are bringing underrepresented PhD students to give them exposure on how to teach in the classrooms. So when they have graduated, they have the necessary tools that they would be able to be a very competitive person or candidate for teaching positions. In New York State, we have something called the College Science Technology Entry Program. And this program is where you bring underrepresented minorities and underserved communities into STEM. And we also work with the Lois Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. These are just but some of the examples in which we could work with programs at different universities and colleges. And we are always looking in extending how it is we collaborate with 2-year colleges. Next. Great. So let's talk about the Community College Internship Program. So the Community College Internship Program, or CCI, is a 10-week program during the summer, and it's full-time during the summer, and it can be part-time or full-time during the regular semester. These are paid internship programs. Community college students can come to this program twice during their tenure at school, and they get a $600 a week stipend. And if their permanent address is beyond the 50-mile radius of the lab, and in BNL's case, obviously with California, you're way beyond the 50-mile radius, you get free housing and round-trip transportation. As a matter of fact, we have had a number of community college students from California, from the West Coast, participating in our program. But what is interesting about this program is these students can have 2 tracks that they can go into. They can go into a research track, or they can go into engineering and project-oriented track, which leads to technician-type opportunities. At the end of the program, they all have to write an abstract, a poster, a research paper, and they all get to present their research at a major poster session at our closing ceremony. Next. So students can participate in this program, the CCI program, twice. they can apply to the program 3 times, but they can actually participate in the program twice. Now, what the CCI program does is to take a community college student and make them very competitive. So they can apply to the SULI, which is the Science Undergraduate Laboratory Internship Program. They can apply to that program once they get the kind of experience and exposure and have the competitiveness so that they can get a SULI program. The SULI program is really targeted towards 4 and 2-year colleges students, and it is also a paid internship program. However, it's a full-time program in the summer for 10 weeks and a full-time program during the regular semester for 16 weeks. Some students decide that they are going to take a semester off and do some research. Some students, when they graduate, they have up until 2 years to apply to any of these programs. Again, you have enrichment modules, and they have to produce an abstract, poster, and a research paper again. Next. The program that I'm very excited to really talk to this group about is the visiting faculty program. And the visiting faculty program is where a faculty can bring 1 or 2 students to participate on a mutually agreed project with an engineer or a scientist at any of the national labs. And it's a paid internship. It's only during the summer. It's for 10 weeks. The faculty will get $1,400 a week, and the students will get $600 a week as a stipend. They will be provided with round-trip transportation and also housing. At BNL, all of our housing is on our campus. So that's one of the things that is very attractive to students and also to faculty. But this is a launch point for faculty to really strengthen or develop their research capabilities, but also to develop research capacity for their home institutions. And one of the things that we look for coming out of this program, although it's the launch point, we want this to be sustainable and durable. So we design the programs in such a way that faculty can continue. So you are able to come back 3 times in this program to conduct research during the summer at any one of the national labs. Next. At the end of the internship programs, at all of the internship programs, we tend to have a closing ceremony. And we would have graduate panel discussion talking about graduate schools. We have a graduate fair where we have a number of graduate schools that will come and talk to our interns and try to get them into their graduate schools, because they have recognized that these students who have conducted research are valuable and are very good when they go into the graduate sphere. We have oral presentations and poster presentations and a closing ceremony. And what I want to mention here is the applications for these programs for the summer open the first week in October and they close the first week in January. And it's very important that you all get all of the applications in. And I'm hoping that you as professors will encourage your students to go onto our websites, and each lab would have their own website, and take a look at what are the areas of interest. And also, very importantly, I would hope that you professors would consider collaborating with the Department of Energy and the national labs through this particular mechanism. Next. And there it is. Questions? I guess, James, you'll tell me if we're going to have questions now or at the end. Sorry.
Well, I had a couple questions myself, and as moderator, I think I can go in first. But I also invite everyone else to I think we'll take a break right now and sort of clear out questions that folks have. But I've got a couple that others on this webinar may be thinking as well. So first, in terms of capacity, what are the numbers of internships, whether it's SULI or the other programs, just in terms, California has 115 community colleges in and of itself. So if this webinar were to spur some tremendous interest, which no doubt it may, what are the odds of actually being successful in that program?
So it's very interesting. The SULI program, which is for both 4 and 2-year college students, it's very competitive. You're looking at probably in the order of about 6 to 7 to 1. So 6 applications and you'd probably get 1. And I think that has been increasing also. However, the CCI program is more in the order of 1 to 1 because you don't have a lot of community college students taking advantage of the CCI program. And this is the opportunity for community college students to get the kind of tools or skills in their toolbox so that they can be more competitive as they move on to a SULI program or other internship programs, because they have, one, created a networking, but more importantly, they also have the kind of skills that researchers and engineers would be looking for. I hope that helps.
As a follow-up to that, someone just out in the chat box asked, so it's just for clarification, is SULI only for university students, or would that be?
No. The SULI, and I'm sorry, the SULI is for both 4 and 2-year colleges. The CCI program is only for 2-year colleges. And the cool thing about it is, as a CCI student or intern, you could actually participate 4 times with the Department of Energy through this process, as compared to a university student who could only participate 2 times, which is only in the SULI program. So there is an advantage for the community college student.
That's great, thank you. And it sounds like, and there may have been some misnomers of just understanding that it sounds like most of your programs are not exclusive to the geography that your community college may be located within. It sounds like there's transferability, that whether the best application of your interest is in another state, in another lab, that's not a hindrance on whether you're located in California or not.
No. It's a national program at all of the national labs. As a matter of fact, I can speak profoundly about BNL. We have had students from Alaska, from Hawaii, from Puerto Rico, from California, Utah. I could go down. It's a national program.
That's great. That's great. That's good to know for the group here. And third is, the shadow in the room is COVID. So when you mention the program and you've mentioned the timelines for October application, is that still moving forward this year, given COVID and the opportunities?
So it's interesting. Each lab will have numbers. With regards to our program specifically, and I want you all to understand, these programs that I outline are very specific to the Department of Energy, the Office of Science. Each lab will have other internship programs. So at BNL, we had about 385 interns in 2019 summer. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we could only have virtual internship program, so virtual projects. And we only had about 150 students in these in this virtual mode this past summer. This fall, we are still virtual, and we don't have much interns for the fall and the spring semesters. But we have in the order of 35 interns, and 4 of which are community college that are doing virtual internship programs for the fall. We're hoping as we move forward that that would change and for the summer of 2021, but more than likely as we move forward, we all know that the way we have done business in the past would change. We are thinking of having a hybrid internship program, which is a combination of virtual interns and on-site interns. And this will give us even a broader scope.
The fewer number of interns that you had in the virtual model, was that as a result of the situation and fewer applications, or was it capacity internally to handle fewer because of the virtual nature of it?
So it was because of the virtual nature. Our internship programs are really hands-on. We have a lot of bench type work, and specifically for technicians and CCI students, it's hands-on and they have to be in the lab. And unfortunately, we had restrictions because of COVID for access.
Understood. Any other questions in the chat box that you'd like Noel to respond to, and again, we'll have a broader conversation on Q&A later. But if there's nothing now, I will hand it off to Beth. Thanks again, Beth.
Sure. Thanks for joining us today. It's nice to see a broad list of attendees. I have been at Lawrence Livermore for about 15 years and have been working with the with community colleges since around 2014. And what I'm going to talk about today, this is kind of your deep dive. So we started with pretty high level DOE, and then Noel shared some of the DOE programs, what Brookhaven's doing. We look very similar to Brookhaven if I got into details about programs and opportunities. But what I really wanted to do today was really show you some models that are currently going on, at least with our laboratory, and what the potential would be with the 4 national labs that are here in the Bay Area alone. So with that, let's just go ahead into the next slide, please. So most of the laboratories are in the situation that we have an aging workforce. Most government agencies are in this situation. Just in my department, the engineering department, we have 2,000 employees. And we've actually hired 1,000 new employees in the last 5 years. And because of retirements and because of new business coming in, we expect that we're going to need, again, just in my department, 1,000 more people in the next 5 years. And many of these are middle skilled needs. When I push this out and look at the picture for the full Lawrence Livermore laboratory, it's probably about 2,000 engineers and scientists. And I know I'm talking to community college folks. I know you know what middle skilled workers are, but for those that, just in case you don't, those are the, we need many 2-year graduates in a variety of STEM areas as well. So between the 4 labs in the Bay Area, which are SLAC, Berkeley, Sandia, and Lawrence Livermore, we all work together because we have amazingly high workforce needs. And this is a great opportunity for those of you that are looking for opportunities to spend your strong workforce money. And the program I'm going to talk about today is one that a couple of the community colleges have used the strong workforce monies to develop with us. So next slide. So a big part of my particular job is university relations, diversity and inclusion, and then running the student program for engineering. Now, we normally host about 200 students just in engineering students, but the laboratory hosts between 1,000 and 1,200 students each year. In COVID, we jumped through hoops just like you did as educators, and we did come up with a remote internship program this summer. It breaks my heart because I love interacting with students, and we could only have the Zoom meetings, and I know that the students felt, that they were happy to have jobs this summer, but I know that there was many things that were missing in those relationships. But we really do use and look at students, community college students and university students, not only as, our workforce pipeline, but you're the key to the kingdom for building the diversity part. And I think that, I don't know that a lot of companies know that yet. I think a lot of companies are used to working just with universities, and just like myself included, in the last few years, I've realized, knowing much more about community colleges, that we have to get involved with you in order to build this workforce, whether it's a 2-year program or whether it's a program that transfers into one of our key schools. Next slide. So, in 2013, Lawrence Berkeley, NASA, Lawrence Livermore, SLAC, And maybe some of the folks that are on this call, I think we had about 10 or 12 community colleges, came to Lawrence Livermore, and we brainstormed over a STEM program. And we were asked specifically, and this was hosted, or how should I say it? Not hosted, it was coordinated through a nonprofit called Growth Sector. And we were asked about what are the key educational components that we need that are acceptable in the national labs that make students successful. And what we agreed upon was that math, of course, is the key element. And we know that you're dealing with a lot of remedial math entrance students, and that is where a lot of the failure points are. And so one of the things that the colleges came up with Growth Sector is an accelerated math program. The laboratories agreed that everybody has really specific needs, and the colleges each have specific areas of applied learning. You might be strong in machining or welding or drafting. And we want to leverage that, and but we also just want the students to have a basic science background before coming into the laboratory. The next thing that we talked about from a historical point of view that's been really successful at the community colleges is the cohort learning. Now, not all the schools have kicked off cohort learning, but since Las Positas is in our backyard, they kicked off from this meeting, they kicked off a cohort learning program. It was focused on veterans because they had over 500 veterans. And I know Saddleback and Palomar and some of the Southern California schools have many more veterans. And we have maybe crossed paths because of this conversation. Why veterans and why national labs? Being new to the community college environment, two things. One is we actually kind of like non-traditional students. They bring a little bit more maturity to us. The veterans, I work in a weapons lab, and so the veterans understood they understood the security needs, and they understand the values and basically our mission. And although we're very intimidating because only smart people work at the national labs, we interacted with those students early on, and it's been a very successful program. Las Positas has since opened up that cohort program to all students, and it is truly a pipeline to us. Ohlone College followed suit. They work with, they're feeding students. They have a new EE Tech program. They had the same labs come in and help them and coach them on what that should look like. They also, of course, included Tesla and probably Lam Research, but they're standing up a new EE Tech program that we're all committed to, not only for internships, but for the apprenticeship program. And I saw that Adele's on the call from Regional Director of Apprenticeship Program. So we have been educated on apprenticeship programs, and we are definitely here to partner with you on expanding that. So I thought you'd like to hear that good news. So some of the other schools that have adopted this STEM core program are Evergreen, Skyline, Las Positas, obviously, Ohlone, Mission Colleges, and there are probably a few other schools. I understand that there's 15 in all. And I've taken this nationwide with Growth Sector. And so we actually have 8 or 9 national labs that are leveraging that particular curriculum and developing community college relationships in their states. So thank you, California community colleges, for that. So let's go to the next slide. So as we really travel down this path with community colleges, these are the praises that I'm singing to my peers, and that you are the place where we're going to get diversity, and it's important that we come in and support you now. You do offer specialized training. You do have a strong workforce money that can help support that. You have many of our non-traditional students. We know that you're motivated to respond to employer needs. And you're the pipeline, at least, mostly to our key California universities that are a workforce pipeline. We understand that you are, it's my understanding that it's the community colleges where the apprenticeships are happening. I have not spoken to any four-year schools that have talked to me about apprenticeships. And then the other advantage that I really promote is that when we hire a Loney or Las Positas or Laney College student, we often have them year round. And that's really where we're blending the apprenticeship program. We may have hired them through the SULI or the CCI program, probably the CCI program in the summer. And if they worked out well and we're happy and they're happy with us, they are receiving apprenticeship opportunities. So one of the newer opportunities that I wanted to bring to your attention is the Lawrence Berkeley Lab just received $115 million from the Department of Energy to build new quantum technology systems. And that's really with the goal of building a workforce that's ready to contribute to those areas. And they're going to be looking for community colleges and four-year schools to develop new curriculums with. Now, does this mean that there is money coming to the school? I don't know, but I would say that this does mean that there's new career paths. My point is that there's new careers emerging all the time within the national laboratories. And one of the reasons that the universities like having us on their boards, as well as the community colleges, is we give you that insight on what's coming next. And that's what we're all asking for. What's next in the STEM world? What do we need to prepare our students for? So really, really encourage you to reach out to us for any advice or on curriculum or new programs that you're interested in, and I can help be that person for California. And I think James and I can work on that. I'm not sure how you want to do that, but I'm going to offer that up to you. And then the next slide, please. So my experience with running student programs for the last 5 years is, and that's really exciting, and I like to brag about this, is I change lives, because when we bring students in and they are community college, particularly when they're exposed to PhDs and folks with masters, they go, hey, I don't look any different than them. I have the same, they start to believe in themselves, and they're really, really encouraged. It's a very different relationship, as you can imagine, with a research scientist than a college faculty member or staff member. And so we have seen many students coming out of our 2-year program. Well, I've got, at least I can't even give you a statistic on that. 20% of the students that graduated from the 2-year Las Positas student program have actually gone on to 4-year schools and completed their engineering or computer science degrees. And there's a growing number of those that are going on to their masters. So very, very proud of being a partner with you to really help stimulate the long-term education goals of our students. And I think that is pretty much everything that I wanted to really bring to light to you.
Thank you so much for that, Beth. I think it's, we can only fit so much into an hour webinar on a Friday, right? But I think we've really reached the goals of, one, this quite honestly being an eye-opener for the individuals who are part of this webinar of what the opportunities are, right? I mean, when you hear DOE, you think energy, which that has been debunked, and then the breadth of opportunities. I think that's it's threefold, if not more, that you certainly have the resources and tools for faculty specifically in terms of content, curriculum and program development, but you also have certainly a bucket of resources that are student-centric in terms of the relevance to the classroom and providing those internships and mentorships. And then at the end of the day, you are major employers in the region. And so when it comes to a full talent pipeline sourcing function, you certainly play a role in the communities for that as well. So that was first and foremost for this webinar, was to provide that umbrella support for the individuals on the call today. I guess I'll start with one question, and then I'd invite individuals in the chat box to submit their questions, and we'll start running through them. But first and foremost, and Beth, you touched on it, was, all right, so this sounds great. Where do I start? If I'm on this call, I'm sure there are contact information and contact names and numbers in the toolkit. But you three sort of first in ambassadors with this group. Is that something that if someone has a question to just reach out to you specifically and individually to ask questions? And a lot of these programs are very robust, but perhaps could be looking a little daunting of to initiate that conversation. How has that gone in the past, and how would you like it to go here?
Well, I'll just tell you a little secret. We need everybody, all 115 schools with the workforce needs that we have. So yeah, no, we can't, the Alonis and the Laneys and the Las Positas schools and the Deltas, we can't get enough, even for just my laboratory, we can't get enough. So, and I work with all 4 labs on a regular basis. And so if people want to reach out to me, I'm happy to be the connector. I will do my best. I do work, I mentioned growth sector. They are, I would just say that one of the things I used to say when I gave talks about these programs is I didn't know how to speak to community colleges. And that sounds really snobby, but we weren't used to working with you. And so the nonprofit actually helped us understand your dollars and how things work, because you're very different than the 4-year university. And so so I do partner with them closely, but I am more than happy to take any request and connect dots for people.
That's great. Eric and Noelle, are you in the same bucket? What I'm leaning toward is perhaps on the toolkit and the recording of this to also include your email contact information for anybody who's interested.
Yes, absolutely. Please do. I was going to suggest that anyone can contact us directly. So please include my points of contact. And also, I would suggest the toolkit itself is a wonderful resource. If there's questions or a need for further information, by all means, please reach out to us and perhaps connect you to the appropriate person, given whatever case may be.
Right. Great. Well, we have a question from Bruce Noble, and I think this question is for Beth. Is the foundational STEM curriculum considered as a prerequisite sequence for technical program pathways?
The STEM core really was initially to address the technologist area that we need. They look sort of like scientists, but obviously they don't go into the heavy calculus and whatnot. But it is currently being used by, I don't know if I should say the word most, but it's been being used by many of the universities to go into, for transfer programs. It just depends on your articulation agreements.
Great. Follow-up question for Noelle. In terms of the CCI program, is there one application regardless of which laboratory you're interested in? Is it one application with a drop-down, or are the application processes different depending on which lab you are interested in partnering with or applying to?
Good question. It's one application. It's the application, you would get it probably from any of the labs. So you could go to bnl.gov/education, click on the students, and you would see the CCI program, and it will navigate you to that one application that's for the entire DOE complex. All the applications go to DOE headquarters. They then do a compliance review to ensure that the application has all of the requirements. And then based on the selection of the student, whether they wanted to go to Lawrence Livermore or to Lawrence Berkeley or to Pacific Northwest or to BNL, they will be able to select that particular lab as its first, second choice. And there's also an option for all labs. But just to circle back to your question, James, I would also suggest that you have advocates in the 3 of us, Beth, Eric, and I, and please utilize us to connect with folks at the lab, but use the website to understand which lab you'd like to get involved in and what area of research that you'd like to get involved in at that particular lab. That's the place to start. And you'd also see key people under those particular areas. And basically all of the labs are the same. So you'd be able to, if you're interested in energy storage, you would see some key people, and we can be your contact. We would be your liaison, and we would be your advocate. The networking capabilities, please do not underestimate what we have just created here for you.
Well, I love that point. And what I would recommend is people just go to energy.gov, because it lists all of the 17 national labs, and each one sort of has a fingerprint, if you will, in particular sciences. So yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
That's great. Someone in the chat box had asked about what website it is to put that in the chat box, but is it just energy.gov, and it may be in the toolkit as well, or is it energy.gov? You can start there.
What I would suggest is labpartnering.org would be my suggested first stop, and then after that, energy.gov as well. I would utilize lab partnering service as the primary, and that's labpartnering.org is that particular address. But energy.gov has some great resources as well.
That's great. And Charlie, I see Charlie Russomano just put the website in the chat box for folks who are interested in cutting and pasting that. Another question in the chat box, any words to share on the critical nature of building the diverse pipeline starting in high school to ensure purposeful post-secondary transitions of our community youth into STEM programs at the community college and universities?
I had asked to respond to that because that's actually one of my passions, that we have not done a good job of, and we have to do a better job of that as the national labs. At least I'll say Lawrence Livermore. Each lab is different, and Brookhaven may have a really strong high school outreach. We do high school and K through 12 outreach. We do have some workshops in the summer that are 1-week workshops on topics, biology, additive manufacturing, and that's had tremendous impact. I guess what bothers me is that I think the numbers are too small, and I would like to see some way to scale up the outreach to students, and more than a one-time exposure. And yet we still have limitations on getting work done, right? So certainly I think that's a good conversation to have, and together to create maybe some models to look at some successful models that we could do more. Because that's where our equity is. It isn't equitable. My kids got all kinds of tutoring and help in high school and elementary school. That doesn't equitable. Now all families have that, and that's, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
So I'd just like to add, at BNL and most of our sister labs, we do have strong K-12 program. We see close to 35,000 12 kids throughout the year, and we have a number of programs, from exploratory programs where you can go in and work on virtually, to 1-week programs during the summer, and also we heavily focus on underrepresented minorities and underserved communities. And one of the things that we have included as part of the K-12 programming is to include the high school students into the mission of BNL and DOE science. So we have something called a Spark program, where a high school teacher can bring a number of their students to the user facilities. As a matter of fact, we have high school students virtually working and doing research on COVID right now. And the interesting thing is, one of our associate lab directors saw the poster and didn't even realize that the student who did that poster was an 11th grader. So we are really reaching back into the high schools and K-12 programming, because one of the things that we have also recognized, it's an opportunity for branding for DOE. A lot of times you talk to students and they know of NSF and they know of NASA, and DOE, they think it's the Department of Education. So we have to do a better in branding the kind of science and multidisciplinary approach to science and solving problems compared to the rest of the federal agencies.
No, I appreciate those responses, and I think, Eric, one of your first slides on the middle skills in the different states in terms of the growth and demand of these careers and jobs, and Beth, the work around STEM. I mean, these are middle skills. Many of them are middle skill careers that don't require 4-year degrees, and so I'm still, perhaps you're also a slight barrier in optics in terms of the jobs that are available at DOE and at the national laboratories do require 4-year degrees primarily, and that may be a hindrance or an urban legend, I like to call it, out in the community that we may have to be more direct in addressing. So any other questions in the chat box?
James, I'd like to just piggyback on what it is you just said, because at BNL, and again, I'm just using BNL as an example, but it's typical of every other lab within the DOE complex. We have approximately 2,700 staff, of which we probably have about 1,000 scientists. So we have another 1,700 staff that are not scientists, that you don't require, a PhD. So a bachelor's or an associate's degree. As a matter of fact, the Electron Ion Collider, which is the next big physics project in the United States, in order to have that running, we would be probably looking at about 20 technicians just to ramp up for the need of the new set of jobs for the next 10 years. So you're looking at 200 technicians just for one project in one lab. So you could magnify that and scale it up for all 17 labs. We are suffering for technicians in cryo technicians, RF technicians. We need these type of technicians. And when you look at the qualifications, sometimes they only ask for a high school diploma with experience, because that's where we're looking for hands-on folks. And I know the National Science Foundation ATE program, they love to support community colleges, but they also want these students to be technicians. They don't want them to really be moving on. And that's what we're looking for also. Yeah. We're looking for good technicians.
Yeah.
That's a great reminder. Any other questions? I don't see any more in the chat box. And if we don't, it doesn't look like we do, I would like to just thank the presenters once again. I think this is really an eye-opener for those who have participated today, and is in prior cases of organizations and individuals we've worked with, is in a similar fashion to really peel back the conversation initially in this initial webinar. We may come calling again with a subsequent opportunity with some additional specificity on one of your particular programs and dive a little deeper into that. But again, I would like to thank you, sincere appreciation for the wealth of information you provided today. And to everybody who joined, again, ecusector.com. Next week, we'll post this recording, the toolkit, and contact information. Eric, Noel, and Beth, thank you so much again. You've opened the door, and now you're going to get a lot of emails starting next week. So you know where they derived from this afternoon. So have a great Friday, have a great weekend. And once again, thank you to everybody for participating today. Thanks so much.